Well, everyone, welcome to our Bible study, Wednesday First Church virtual Bible study. We will be recording this session today for others who could not make it. I think that it goes without saying that we do need to make sure we try not to kind of walk over each other noise-wise, like talking over another, because we can only hear one person at a time frequently. I think we're pretty good at that already. So just for future reference, that'll be good. And let's see, that should do it. Okay.
Raise our hand.
Yeah, that works too. But so with only 4 of us, I don't think we really need that. I think we're doing fine. Okay. So I guess let's open our Bibles to the book of Daniel today. All right, so I've got this broken up into sections that we could designate some reading for, first 2 verses, and then 3 through 7, and they get bigger and bigger as we go. So would anyone like to volunteer for the first 2 verses?
Yeah, it says in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God.
All right, so just for fun, I made a PowerPoint slide for this very thing. I will screen share it momentarily. That's not it. Let's try that again. There we go. Challenging Times in Babylon, a study in the book of Daniel. So as many of you know, the Israelites were behaving badly off and on over the centuries, and God finally sent them to Babylon for punishment. So they've been carried off, and all their treasuries have been put in the house of some other foreign god. This is disgraceful. Hopefully they'll learn their lesson from this. How about verses 3 through 7, 2 paragraphs? Anyone want to read 3 through 7?
Okay, I will. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand, who had the ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king had appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of trading for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name Belshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego.
Very good. Very good, thanks. Now, technically, they're trying to confuse us by naming Daniel actually Belteshazzar, as opposed to the regular Belshazzar that comes later on. So, yeah. Anyway,
Well, I'm easily confused. So.
no, you know. So, anyway, things are kind of looking up already. You know, these Hebrews are getting jobs. Who knows? Maybe things will turn out well. I do know that if they give up hope, things will not turn out well, but maybe if they keep strong, maybe things will go well for them. Verses 8 through 14. Any takers?
Okay. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid, my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days.
Okay. Okay, I see it. All right. So, what can we learn from this? Anything stand out as something we can learn from this?
Stick to your guns.
Yeah, in a way, it seems like, well, our eating options are not great. We can like eat like the devil, or we can eat just vegetables, and who knows how that's going to go. But, you know, they did the right thing, I guess.
Well, there's a couple things in here. God caused favor on behalf of Daniel to the officials. So, I mean, we see God working, kind of behind the scenes here. But the food, I mean, it doesn't say exactly what kind of food that the royal people were eating. I'm thinking there was a lot of fattened cows and
Well, it would probably be
royal.
unclean to the Hebrews.
He ate only vegetables.
But
He
only ended up with vegetables. But I think the Babylonians may have been eating, let's say, pork, which at the time was, not clean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of animals. Maybe they're eating lobster and shrimp.
Yeah.
Because that was considered unclean to the Jews. So probably the delicacies could be things that we eat today.
But they did not eat then.
But they didn't eat then. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost a contest of gods too. It's a contest of, let's see who's gonna, be healthier here, be stronger here. I mean, in a way, he's kind of showing, my God, let's see what my God can do,
Well,
in a way.
And I'm wondering if a vegetable diet, if we were to go on a vegetable diet, if we would, instead of ho-hos and ding-dongs and Twinkies, get rid of all the delicacies and eat just vegetables.
I'm not sure I'd call a Twinkie a delicacy.
Yeah, well, I know. But I probably would be a very good fast, to be a healthy fast.
Cleansing.
For Daniel, Meshach, Abednego. Mm-hmm. Meshach, and Abednego. Whatever.
I've got a commentary in here. It says, Daniel would not drink the wine or eat the meat from the king's table, Some suggest this was because Daniel was part of the blood lineage of a priestly family in Jerusalem. The simple explanation, however, is the king's meat may have been offered to idols, and Jews were forbidden to eat the meat sacrificed to idols.
Yeah.
This became a New Testament regulation passed on to the Gentiles. Normally, the king would be offended by anyone rejecting the menu at his table. However, this steward, Melzar, respected Daniel and allowed him to eat pulse, a form of cooked seed belonged to be leguminous, such as lentils or chickpeas. After 10 days, the countenance of the 4 Hebrew men were fairer, better, and fatter looking than the Babylonian counterparts. It's interesting that chickpeas today are a common staple in the Middle East.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's probably the fact that they might have been beef, lamb, which is clean to the Jews.
But if they
because
were, the meat was offered to an idol,
an idol,
which
then
made it
clean.
more unclean than an unclean meat.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Good point.
Yeah, they certainly cared a lot about their gods over there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they sacrificed it to their gods. All right, so I'm going to read 15 through 21. At the end of 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who had ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them.
Hi, is this Rosita?
Let's see.
Hi, are you watching?
At the time,
Are you coming to the Bible?
I'm having trouble reading it. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar.
The email,
The king talked with them,
that
and he
Jones
found
heard
none
about.
equal to Daniel. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
Yeah. Robert.
Yes?
No.
No.
Oh, yeah, but Robert and John are together here tonight.
Okay. So they entered the king's service
On the
in
email,
every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them.
John
He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. So
But you have the ability. So
looks like God really came through for them. I mean, here they are in a potentially scary scenario, but
click on that.
God's working mighty thing,
He
starting to
has
work
it.
mighty things for them and through
It'll
them.
bring you into it.
Robert, Robert, can you please mute Alice? You're the host. You can.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
We're muting you, Alice.
We're muting you. Okay, go ahead and repeat your last 2 sentences.
Okay. So verses 20 and 21, in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. And it looks like Alice is back with us here. So
Okay.
anyway, yeah, it looks like they are on the road to something great, mighty deeds for God. In fact, it kind of reminds me of Paul in some ways. If I remember right, he went through a lot of hard times, but God kept using him to reach, high and mighty, kings and various people of great influence that may have helped change the world more. And so I guess never give up for God just because you're in Babylon.
Yeah.
Or something like it.
Yeah, even though you're in, it's like nobody else is, you're kind of going against the tide, and you need to stay true to your convictions because God's in it. He's putting something together Daniel, it doesn't talk that Daniel kind of knew what was going on. He just knew he needed to obey, you know?
Yes.
And with a simple thing like the food thing. But I mean, that's powerful, guys. That speaks to us today. You know, how does that speak to us today?
I'm curious. I don't want to back you up too far, but back in, I meant to ask Dennis to because he has that that archaeological study Bible. Verse 4, Dennis, at the end it says, whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldean. I'm curious because what I'm trying to remember from ancient history who the Chaldeans were, and if they were like the Babylonians here in verse 21, end of verse 20, the king examining them, finding, the Jews being 10 times better than all the magicians. My Bible says, and astrologers. So does your study Bible say anything about the Chaldeans?
Well, said the end of days here refers to a conclusion of 3 years of training. After personally interviewing these 4 Jewish men, Nebuchadnezzar realized they were 10 times better in Hebrew idiom, meaning multiple times better than all the king's magicians and astrologers. Is that what you were talking about?
What verse were you talking about?
Well, well, that's part of it. That's part of it. Go back to the end of verse 4, and there's a reference to they were looking for good-looking, gifted men, possessing knowledge, quick to understand, who had ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. Is you have Chaldeans?
Isaiah had predicted the sons of Judah would be made eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Here, Nebuchadnezzar instructs a supervisor of the king's eunuchs to select among the captives well-favored Jewish men who were handsome, wise, knowledgeable, and capable of teaching the Chaldean language. The king may have thought that knowledge of the Chaldean language would help him communicate with the thousands of Jewish captives.
Okay, so basically it was, even though they were Babylonian, Marcia's Bible says the language and literature of the Babylonians. My Bible says the Chaldeans, which I think is kind of like, okay, we're in the United States of America, but we call ourselves Americans.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the culture of the land.
It was looking like trying to find somebody to communicate with the captives to keep them in line.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. And Alice.
We have we live in America, but we speak English.
Yeah,
would be more like it,
yeah.
to
Yeah, that's the way to because I think the Chaldeans is actually as Alice says, their language, their literature called Chaldean, even though their country at the time was Babylonia.
Yeah, I don't think there was a language called Babylonian.
Yeah, I agree.
But when I said this means stick to your guns, that's exactly what I meant. It's like we don't compromise. Compromise our actual our moral standard, or what God has told us to do. That's what I get from it.
One thing that at the very end there in verse 21, Daniel continued until the first year of King Cyrus. King Cyrus was prophesied of in Isaiah by name. King Cyrus was from Persia, they came in while the Jews were in captivity. They came in, the Persians came in and took over the country. And I think that that's important to remember. Also, where did the wise men, Christmas time now, where did the wise men come from?
The east.
From the east.
Yeah, that area, yeah.
From this area. And notice here, at least here in the King James, he said he's referring, the king is referring to him.
You're right.
Nebuchadnezzar is referring to these Jews, Jewish men, these 4 Jewish men, as 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers.
And astrologers, yeah.
The wise men were likely astrologers from Babylonia. This is beginning of that connection between the wise men who we see 500 years later at the birth of Christ and Judaism. So kind of an interesting little thing to note there. Go ahead, Robert. Sorry, I just got off on a tangent.
No, that's true. I mean, I've got a Bible that has footnotes saying for verse 2 and 4, Babylonians could be translated Chaldeans, and if go to chapter 2, verse 2, astrologers could also be translated Chaldeans. So it's kind of like, yeah, they're both right, I guess.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because if you want to start drawing messianic connections from this book forward in time, this is really important to remember. Just an important point here in the scripture.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, looks like we could go to chapter 2. What do you guys think?
What time is it?
Sure.
What time is it?
We're doing fine. I don't know.
There, Daniel chapter 2. Okay. Let's see. Any takers on verses 1 through 7?
Okay, I'll do it. Now, in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. The king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream. We will give the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made in ash heap. Wow, pretty severe. However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation.
Wow, sounds like king is not getting help from his wizards or whatever these are, wise men. So verses 8 through 13, any takers for that?
I'll do it, but it's in King James.
That's
It might be a
fine.
little different. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see things gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you, for ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye will show me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, this is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things of any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show before the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men in Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men would be slain, and they sought Daniel and his followers to be slain.
All right, thanks.
We're to put them to death?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's so mad he wants to put all of them to death. I guess, does that mean more than those that showed up? I mean, is that we're talking about the Israelites as well? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he kind of made the 4 Israelites into wise people. I don't know. Let's see how this goes here. Verses 14 through 23, I will read those. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, "Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?" Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went in to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house. Let me think here. Am I reading this? Okay. Then Daniel returned to his house, and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men in Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, "Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He sets up kings and deposes them. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king." Wow. God came through for Daniel. And he still felt the need to ask his friends to pray for him. So I guess things are pretty serious. So
There was a lot at stake here.
yeah. But God's greatness seems to shine through often here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to me like Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were with the other guys. Does it to you?
You know, it's hard to say. Certainly, they weren't dead yet. I don't know if they were counted with the other wise men. I don't know. I do know that Arioch came to Daniel, and
Yes.
maybe Arioch was looking for the 3 or all 4 to put them to death, and maybe Daniel slowed him down with reasoning, and so
That's what it appears, Robert, in verse 13, because it says the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death.
Right.
So
Right.
they weren't kind of with the group of these magicians and sorcerers who were originally called upon to interpret the dream, but they were out there, but they were considered part of this group.
Yeah,
You know.
you know, when you look at people that operate in the mystic spiritual areas, the people today that are claimed to be astrologers and psychics and hand palm readers, and those people, they will constantly, for money, make predictions about people's future for them. and many people live off of their advice. But it's funny that none of them really get called on the carpet when they are wrong with their predictions. It's kind of like, oh, you just blew it, you know. And here, the king was saying to these same type of people, okay, tell me my dream. You're the mystics. You're the ones that are, yeah, you're the wise men that know all things of the spirit. Here's my dream. Tell me about it. It's kind of like they were shaking in their shorts because the king said, look, either you guys do what you say you can do, okay, interpret this dream, or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Because basically you're a bunch of phonies. Now, I think Daniel, fortunately, and his 3 friends were away from that area and were preserved so that way they had the opportunity to hear from God, to go back to the king. I think that's what happens next. They go back to the king and tell him what the dream was all about.
Mm-hmm.
So they were away from that moment in time in order for them to seek God and get the true meaning of this dream.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go ahead, Alice. I'm sorry.
I thought it was kind of interesting that the king did not even tell them his dream.
Not yet. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted them to tell him what he had dreamed and what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the king's kind of like saying, okay, now wait a minute. If you guys are the psychics of the time, you know, and you're in this high, lofty place, then tell me what my dream was and what it meant.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't know nothing.
And I want to know now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, or your head comes chopping off. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Like Alice's doggy there.
Yes.
So, you know, it's, and this is something to remember when we talk about people that are fortune tellers, psychics. They claim, modern day psychics claim that they hear from God.
Mm-hmm.
God tells them or gives them inspiration. It's a gift they get from God to look ahead into future times. But the problem is that the Old Testament says that, you know, if you get it all wrong, if you get one thing wrong, you're not a prophet, you're a false prophet, we're going to stone you. And today they're just, you know, they just get away with it.
And get money too.
Well, I've always heard that they don't get it from God, that there's another power involved there.
They're right. They either guessed wrong or they got it from the devil. You know, you're right. They either
my mother was a witch, and before she was a Christian, and she told me, she said, you stay away from tarot cards, you stay away from all of that black magic kind of stuff, because it is of the devil. She knew.
Wow.
Well, and that, unfortunately, when you get that glimpse right there and you're rescued by God, that is a real act of grace by God to save you from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're right. There is some truth to all that. I mean, they're dealing with the wrong spirits.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, he told him his dream.
Now for verses 24 to 35. I will read these ones.
Okay.
Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret the dream for him. Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Daniel replied, No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king of the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that passed through your mind as you lay on your bed are these. As you were lying there, O king, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me not because I have greater wisdom than other living men, but so that you, O king, may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind. You looked, O king, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. But the iron, the clay, the bronze, and the silver, and the gold were broken to pieces at the same time and became like chaff on the threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Wow, what do you think about that?
So he's telling him his dream right now.
Yes.
Is the one that he got in the vision from God. So he's telling him he's either going to be right or he's going to be dead.
Yeah. That's a pretty detailed dream to be telling someone.
Yes, it is. Wow.
Keep going.
All right. Verses 36 to 43. No, say 36 to 45. Does anyone feel like conquering that territory for us?
Okay, this is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, of the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Wow, history lesson.
Right.
For him, it was the future, but for us, it's a history lesson.
Very clear. Wow.
Basically, this king who's being told he's been made the greatest, you know, he's been set over the whole world, it seems, and now his kingdom is going to fall, and other kingdoms are going to fall after it. And there's a pretty big God here that has not only verified that he's the one essentially giving this information by telling the dream, but now he's given the interpretation that got to get King Nebuchadnezzar his attention. And but yeah, any other thoughts about this?
I've got interesting notes here on 44 and 45.
Okay.
I said 2 important predictions were found here. First, in the days of these 10 kings, the Messiah will return. This is also clear in John's vision when he saw the 10 kings in Revelation, and shortly thereafter witnessed a vision of Christ returning to earth with the armies of heaven following him upon white horses to defeat the Antichrist, bind Satan, and set up Christ's kingdom for 1,000 years. Here, Daniel describes the Messiah coming in the form of stone crashing down upon the empires. The stone is a symbol of the kingdom of God and of Christ himself. Isaiah predicted that God would lay a foundation stone in Zion. Zechariah saw the cornerstone with 7 eyes. Christ himself said, and whoever shall fall on the stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him into powder. Matthew 21, a direct reference to Daniel's prophecy.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, that's excellent. The study notes I have here talk about the kingdom of gold was the kingdom of Babylon. And then the next kingdom was the Persian kingdom, which we talked about earlier, headed up by Cyrus, that would come in and overtake the Babylonian kingdom, even though it would not have the glamour of the Babylonian kingdom. In fact, if I remember right, and one of you can correct me, this was at a time where they had some wonderful ancient buildings and shrines throughout the known world at the time, and that was one of the trademarks of the Babylonian Empire. So the first one is the Babylonian Empire, the next one is the Persian Empire, the third one, the Kingdom of Bronze, would be the Grecian Empire, which, you know, their culture overtook much of the known world, and then they were in turn conquered by the Romans. And though Rome kept a lot of, and adopted a lot of the Greek culture and the Greek language. That's why so much of the New Testament is actually written in Greek, even though the Romans spoke in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 4 kingdoms that he saw. But then what Dennis just read is the time yet to come. Okay, but God will set up a kingdom that is everlasting, right? Dennis, isn't that what your notes just said?
Yeah,
43.
I got an interesting thing about the languages too.
Mhm.
It said the king's wise men spoke Syriac is a language, it's a word for Aramaic. And from Daniel 2:4 to 7:28, the language in the book changes from Hebrew to Aramaic. And then 8 through 12, he switches back to Hebrew. So he wrote that part in Aramaic.
Interesting.
And then the rest of it in Hebrew.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, this is a vision that will be fulfilled at the time of the second coming of the Lord, the very end of it.
Okay, well, there was gold and there was silver, then there was bronze, right? So
Right.
gold was Babylon and silver was, Cyrus was Persian, right?
Persian, right. And
And
then bronze was
gold.
Greece.
Who was bronze?
Bronze was Greece, the Grecian
great.
Empire. and then Rome was iron.
Okay, and iron and clay, I'm wondering if that's the iron and clay. I wonder if that's it, Israel, the Israelites.
Oh. My notes that I made several years ago here said that the toes of the feet, verse 42, represents Europe.
Okay,
Because remember that there will be a restored, if you will, Roman Empire in the end times. And some people think it's the false religion, the one world religion, and that will be coming out of Europe. Because basically the end of his interpretation versus, the dream, let me go back to the dream. Verse 35, then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold were crushed together, became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace could be found. And the great mountain filled the whole earth. That would be fulfilled in the day of the Lord. It's just a one take. It was just a study that I had done years and years ago, from which I'm reading some notes on. It's just something to say, because those who study end time eschatology, which is a study of end times, many times goes back to this vision as being part of a prophecy of the Bible that has yet to be fulfilled. So I throw that out.
All right. All right, so down to the final stretch here. How does King Nebuchadnezzar respond to all this? Anyone want to start at verse 46 and take us through the end of it?
Okay. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. The king answered Daniel, said, truly, your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret. Then the king promoted Daniel, gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all of the wise men of Babylon. Also, Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king.
Robert, does it sound like the magicians and sorcerers were not killed because of what Daniel did?
One can only speculate. I mean, certainly they didn't have as much time to get away necessarily, but it's, I don't know. It took a while to find the Israelites, and by then Daniel slowed things down.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine a bunch of them died. I could imagine all of them died, but we might have to keep reading. We might find at some point down the road that there are still some there, and so who knows?
Well, don't you think it says that the king appointed Daniel over all the wise men of Babylon, so they were there, and Daniel had asked the king not to kill them.
Yeah.
Well, I think specifically Daniel asked Arioch not to kill Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
And if you go back further, I mean, back when the king got mad after 3 rounds of tell me my dream, and his magicians and stuff that were right there present with him were like, we can't do that. And the king says, die, all of you, basically. And so they were within reach of arrows probably at that point. So they might have died, and then the guards might have gone around looking for all the other ones as well. And so I'm thinking it's a good chance a bunch of them died, but it doesn't mention it necessarily unless I forgot it.
Well, it does say he did place Daniel over the wise men at the end of chapter 2. So there were some still remaining, but they're referred to as wise men at the end of chapter 3. And at the beginning of chapter 2, they're referred to as magicians, enchanters, and sorcerers, and astrologers. So maybe it boiled down to just the smart ones. I don't know.
Well, I think some of them got knocked off, and then
Yeah.
basically Daniel talked to the captain of the king to stop doing it.
Yeah.
You know, let's give everybody a break here. Now, this is
Also, there's two kind of things important there too, is I think that Daniel didn't forget the 3 people who prayed with him all night to interpret the dreams. And also, he never took credit for himself.
Yeah. Gave it to God. Yeah.
Yes, humility and a reverence for God is very big in Daniel, I find, as we'll see in future chapters as well.
Cool.
yeah. This is good tonight. I'm glad you wanted to do this, Robert, and this is I think a good study. We're going to have to tell people to get on board with us.
Well,
And
whoever can.
whoever
Not
can,
everybody
yeah. And
So will we pick up with chapter 3 next
Yes.
Wednesday?
Yes, 3 and maybe chapter 4 as well, based on how fast we're going.
Okay. Okay, very cool.
yeah,
I'm still trying to find the part where Daniel said that not to kill the astrologers. And
well,
I don't think he actually said not to.
verse 13 said, so the decree went out and began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. And then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, who had gone, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, why is the decree from the king so urgent? And then he, of course, tells Daniel about it. And Daniel said that, well, gosh, give me a chance to tell the king his interpretation. Give me a chance.
I don't think he actually said stop the killing, because I don't think he had the power to do that, but he
Verse
did
24.
deter
Verse
him.
24. Therefore, King Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of
yeah,
Babylon. He went and said to him, do not destroy
not destroy the wise.
wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will tell him,
Okay.
the king, the interpretation. And then as we saw here at the end of the chapter, Daniel was put over chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. So he saved their lives, and now he's going to be their boss.
And they're going to love it.
Yeah, they're going to love it. This guy saved our lives.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to love it. No, they're going to be mad about it. Jealous.
Yeah. Well, before we close, maybe what I could do for people that might watch this video and maybe want to join next time, but they're afraid of all the buttons they have to push, I'm going to do a quick little PowerPoint of how to get past some of these technical glitches, so they can learn from this and see if this makes a difference. Let me screen share this.
Okay.
Pay close attention there, John, because you're going to have to do it for me again tomorrow night, probably.
Well, yeah, you got on tonight. You'll get on tomorrow night just fine. But I think Robert, what you had to do is share the video of tonight's message along with your PowerPoint. We'll find a way to connect it to the website so people can.
Okay. But for now, I'll do like a 30-second or so explanation of how to get past certain issues. So like if you come to a screen that says join with video, yes, you want to push that button. It's really useful. Anything that says join with video, yes. Same thing with join with computer audio. If you can hit yes on your computer, that's great. Now, if you have sound problems, try this. If you have a laptop computer, somewhere over on that side of your computer, there's if you see, well, let's zoom in on that. Join audio. If you see join audio, that means your audio is not working yet. You should push that button and try to push all the yes options that it gives you for hooking that up. And when it says mute, that's when it's actually the right setting for you're good to go. Now, if you have a phone, you might find this to be a solution. Okay, my phone looks kind of like this. Okay. And there's someone in a meeting on the phone. Now, if hidden in the lower left corner, you might touch the screen and make it say join audio. That will be a useful option if you're using your phone for this meeting. So that's it for my short instructions.
Good job, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
I had to take that portion of
That's
the
awesome.
video and send it to everybody
You
on the
should.
board.
Absolutely.
And then, hey, Robert's going to teach you how to get on.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Well, I did the app this afternoon just to see how it worked, and it was pretty easy. Just push this, and once the app got loaded on, and so I just waited until after 6 o'clock to join the group, and it just come right on. So
That's where I was just, it said, wait for your, the person that set this up. I don't know what they call it.
wait for the person that can mute you anytime he wants. So
The host.
That's good.
The host, that's right.
Yeah.
But I never did get to put any of the numbers from the email in, like the password and all that stuff.
I did because I already had Zoom, and I just opened up. I just clicked join a meeting, and I typed in the number of this meeting, and
Oh, well, I have Zoom. so I
from
can
now
do that.
on, what you do, well, tomorrow night, you just
Yeah.
type in the number of our meeting tomorrow night. There will not be a password tomorrow night because I will see you come on, and then I just click and have you join.
You'll let them join.
I'll let you join. Yeah, so it's pretty easy. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
See you tomorrow night, Dennis.
okay, I'll see you tomorrow night, and I'll talk Carolyn into joining us next week, and we'll do it on the couch in the living room. So
Yeah, that'd
I'm
be,
using her iPad.
Nice.
that'd be good. Somebody pray and thank the Lord for our gathering.
Father God, thank you very much for this time together. Thank you for helping it work out for everyone who showed up. And we hope that more people want to come next time. Daniel is an awesome book. We're really getting a lot out of it. Let's just keep it coming and let people know that in hard times, we still have a really big God who can really bring the blessings. And just
Thank you.
thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank
All right.
you, Robert.
See you, Robert.
Robert, did you ever, does Mark have an email address?
Yes, in fact, I sent him a Zoom link for tonight. I don't know if he got it in time or was up to all the complexity of it, but yeah, he has an email address. I can send it to you.
Robert, do you-
Send it to Carrie Obby. She was the one that wanted it for
Okay.
the praise team stuff.
Okay. I'll do that.
Robert, thank you, guys.
We're going to leave.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.